I've been making Stalker for the past few months now, but what's Stalker? Well, it's a roguelike bullet heaven, and just like my previous game, it also has Paper Mario inspired graphics. The way the game works is that you have minute-long encounters where you defeat a horde of enemies, and then use the game's map system to choose what your run's path will be. Unlike most other bullet heavens that focus on giving you little stat improvements between runs to make your characters more powerful, Stalker is more roguelike-ish in that there is no stat meta progression. So, the way that you improve is through unlocking new items, weapons, and characters, and learning the systems of the game. This makes the game more like Brotato than Vampire Survivors, and if you've ever played both games, you kind of know what to expect. So what's going on with the game then? What is it that I'm working on now? Well, that's what this video is about. About a month and a half ago, we started the Kickstarter campaign for Stalker, and 2 weeks ago it ended at a crazy 317% funded. I'm so incredibly thankful for this, and it's going to let us make the game so much better and more expanded, but before I explain exactly where the money is going to go, let me describe what the current roadmap of Stalker is. So the current version of the game that's available as a demo on Steam is the alpha version, and near the end of the campaign, I shared a roadmap for the full development of the alpha version. So throughout this roadmap, you can see exactly what I'll be adding and when. What's even cooler is that the Kickstarter backers that got early access tiers can play the game before it even releases in regular early access. So all of this and more will be playable before release for these backers. So the first update of the roadmap that released about a week ago was Alpha 1.4, and it included the weapon upgrade rework. So let me explain how that works, because I worked on that for the whole week. So how the upgrade system worked before, and this is still how it works in the non-backer demo on Steam, is that you had to buy a duplicate of a weapon that you already had when your weapon slots were filled, and this would cause your lowest level weapon to increase a level, so increasing it in damage and range, and decreasing its cooldown. This kinda works okay if the game is designed in such a way that upgrades aren't very important, but then what's the point of having upgrades at all if they don't really matter much? Because of this, I decided that I had to redesign the upgrade system, and this is the mock-up that I ended up with. So here we are in Illustrator, which is where I do most of my UI design stuff, and you'll see that there's 3 different screens that correspond to different parts of the new mock-up of the upgrading. And so you'll see the first one is the pre-shop reward. So previously, as I explained, you would buy 2 weapons of the same type and you can upgrade them like that, but now you actually get to manually choose an upgrade. And you can also heal. I added that because some people were saying that some characters were too HP deficient near the beginning, and so this will help those characters not die super early. And so when you click on upgrade, you go here to the weapon upgrade, and obviously you get to choose which weapon of the ones that you have equipped you want to upgrade, and if they're max level 5, you can't do that, right? And so if you click on one of those, you get to choose what the upgrade is, and this depends on which type of weapon you have. So if it's a projectile, obviously, if you have a melee weapon, you can't increase the number of bullets that is shot, but a projectile can. And so there's different types of upgrades depending on what the category of your weapon is. And so once you choose this, that's the end of the upgrade, and there you go. But let's see how this actually turned out in the game though. So here we are in the game, we're about to enter a shop, and we'll see how it goes. So right off the bat, you'll see we have the upgrade and heal choice as I explained in the mockup, so that's all the same. And we can choose to upgrade the soul stone. So let's choose that. And as you see here, you can either increase the weapon's knockback, the critical chance, or the piercing. This is probably the coolest one. But all pretty similar for now, right? So I'll choose this, and that's it. I'm in the shop, right? But what's different? Well, on the surface level, it looks basically exactly the same, but there are some key design choices that I had to change from the mockup. And the first one is that there's no way to go back after you choose a weapon, and the reasoning for this is quite simple. In testing, if you had 2 weapons of 2 types, so a melee weapon and a projectile weapon, if you chose one or the other, the upgrades that would come up would differ. It's like what I explained before. If you have a melee weapon, you don't really want the upgrade that increases how many projectiles you shoot, because with a melee weapon you don't shoot any projectile. And you'd think that it'd be a really easy fix to just make it such that different upgrades appear for different weapon classes, but the problem with this is that if you choose, for instance, a projectile weapon and you check the upgrades and you don't like them, then you'll go back, check the melee weapon, and maybe you'll like those, maybe you won't, but it's just a lot of menuing that isn't really necessary, and it just really tanks the pacing of the run, which is supposed to be, pretty snappy. So this one little thing that was in the mock-up and didn't end up being in the final version of the game was quite minor at first glance, but it actually made quite a big of a difference. There's other changes that I made, like if you have all of your weapons upgraded, then you just automatically heal, just small quality of life stuff like that, but that's how the mock-up turned into the final product for the game. Beyond the new implementation that I'm leading, we're also continuing to work with our team members, and that's directly thanks to the Kickstarter funds that we were able to raise. And so, Stalker's team consists of Clay, the enemy artist and key artist, Tim, the composer, Then there's a different Tim, who's the character artist and animator, and finally, there's me, who's the lead developer, designer, and programmer. So an example of Clay's key art is the awesome promotional piece that we use for basically everything, and if you've played my previous game, The Outbound Ghost, you'll recognize Soul Stalker's enemies because Clay was the character artist for that game. Then there's Tim, the composer. He's made tons of awesome Celtic, Zelda, and overall Nintendo-y music on his YouTube channel, and now he's doing the same for Soul Stalker, and in fact, all of the music that you hear in this devlog is made by him for the game, and there's tons more that we haven't shown off yet. Finally, there's Tim, and although this Tim is also Dutch like the other Tim, they're not the same person, it's just a total coincidence. He's been making all of the playable characters and animating them as well, so his execution of the Paper Mario style is just absolutely awesome. On that topic, some of you have asked me how I implement the animations of the game in Unity, as the default animation system can get way too complicated, and well, the truth is that I don't even touch Unity's animator at all, and the replacement that I made is quite simple and quite easily replicable for a game you're making, for instance. This is just an overview, so let me know if you want me to make a tutorial or something, but in short, the first thing I do is make a class to hold an animation. It only holds two things: an array of sprites and the duration of a frame in this animation. Then, in my character data, I define all of the animations that my character has. So the idle and the walk animations are what I have for Soul Stalker, and you can do this with a dictionary if you want to, but since I know exactly how many animations each character will have, and that they're all the same, I just define them manually, the idle and the walk animation. Then your inspector should look like this, and you can just drag all of your frames into the animation slot of the animation data and specify how long each frame lasts. I put all of my player data in a scriptable object, so that's where I drag all of my frames into and where I specify the frame duration. But if you have a different approach, like putting all of your data in a behavior that you have on a game object, you can just do the same for the game object. This depends again a bit on how you implement it, but the concept should work. So for the last step, in your player controller or wherever you want to play the animation, you can make a coroutine that looks a bit like this, and it loops through all of the sprites of the animation that you're currently in, and you can have a different function that changes what animation you're in as well. I didn't use this technique for the Outbound Ghost because the game actually doesn't have any animation at all, just discrete sprites for each state, and then I do a bunch of shader stuff to make the characters wobble in a ghost-like manner. But I use this exact same technique for all of my other games that use 2D characters. I showed off this card game prototype in my previous devlog, and you all seem to like it, so here's a little snippet of the overworld section of the game, and the animation used here is actually the exact same approach of what I just described and used in Soul Stalker. This is another game that I made a while ago that actually doesn't use the same approach, and this is actually the reason for why I changed it, because it was such a pain to manually do all the animations in the animator system for Unity and for each enemy, and it was just a pain and not really scalable. So if you maybe wanted to change animation, it wasn't practical, but for this system you can just drag and drop everything, just have the frame duration, and it's pretty simple. So a bit of the stuff that I covered in this video is what we've been working on for the last 2 weeks, and that's not even scratching the surface of what's in the works. We're working on a new character that I've already teased a bit on different socials, and also we're working on Act 2 for the backer alpha demo and tons more. So that's it for this week's devlog, but I'll see you next time to show you more cool stuff. See you.